All righty then. And this spake, so we are at John 11. We're going to move into John 12, and we are already in Revelation 12, which is a very different kind of chapter of Revelation. And this spake he, not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation, and not for that nation only, but also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad. Then from that day forth, they took counsel together for to put him to death. Jesus therefore walked no more openly among the Jews, but went thence unto a country near the wilderness, into the city called Ephraim, and there continued with his disciples. And the Jews' Passover was nigh at hand, and many went out of the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves. Then sought they for Jesus, and spake among themselves as they stood in the temple, What think ye, that he will not come to the feast? Now both the chief priest and the Pharisees had given a commandment that if any man knew where he were, he should show it, that they might take him. Chapter 12. How many chapters are there in the Gospel of John? How close are we getting? How many chapters in the Gospel of John? 21, and we're only at 11? And they're plotting to kill him. John is a different kind of chapter. Yeah, I mean, excuse me, a different kind of gospel. So anyway, be interesting to see where it all continues to go. Revelation 12, the woman clothed. So this is a very abstract chapter of Revelation. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon, Satan, stood before the woman, the church, or Mary, like it represents Jesus's mother as Jesus was born, to kill the man child, which was Jesus. And then it sort of speaks, I think, to the remnant or the Jewish bloodline only, which is the last to be awakened at the abomination of desolation. Gentiles called first, split second later. Jews are called per Romans chapter 11 in general, but verse 25, Romans 11:25 specific to that blindness being lifted by the remnant. Then all the Jews of the bloodline that died before being called, of course, weren't sheep. And then Jesus calls and awakens his bloodline at the very end. And they are the last to be called as sheep. And I believe it's very possible that they are set apart and stay on the earth during the wrath of God, but are hidden from the wrath of God. It's very ambiguous. It's like spaghetti. It's like straightening out all your spaghetti noodles lying in the bowl before you begin to eat. It's very difficult. Let me see. Did cast them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born. That would be Jesus, we would assume. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, Jesus. And her child was caught up unto God, Jesus, and to his throne, Jesus. And the woman, the remnant, the bloodline, fled into the wilderness. Now, I believe this is at the abomination of desolation. So when it says the woman fled into the wilderness, and the way this time frame is given, let's go to Matthew 24 for some context. And this is about all I can draw on. And then let's be in Judea, flee. Let's look up wilderness. I'll do this organically with you just to kind of show you how to do things. So you look up the word wilderness, and you want to filter. And if we go to Matthew, so Matthew 4, Matthew 3, Matthew 3, Matthew 4, Matthew 11, Matthew 15. So it's not in and then let's go to Revelation and see if it's any other place. It's in 2 other places. Here's our 12:6. There's 12:14. And the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time and half a time from the face of the serpent. Well, this is during the Great Tribulation. This is not God's wrath. Revelation 17:3. And so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw the woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy. So it's mentioned again concerning Mystery Babylon. So that's very interesting. We'll go back to Daniel, and so he's telling the church, those that are in Judea, where our Lord was crucified, which is the great city of Mystery Babylon. Don't turn back to get your clothes. Great tribulation. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. So all the days that are given, 3.5 years, 1,260 days, 42 months, it's shortened. And we remember the 2 witnesses, it said only 3.5 days. I think it goes from 3.5 years, the Great Tribulation, to 3.5 days. I think it's all a lot of figurative speech where it's, but the time, and half of dividing time ends up being 3.5 days, potentially. I'm not dogmatic about any of this, but it's knowing what the mark of the beast is. They will be killing sheep rapidly. It's total human possession by the fallen angels to kill the sheep. How long will that take? Just to wipe them all out? Well, it wouldn't take but 3.5 days. And the Lord has to put a stop to it, or no flesh would be saved. Okay. So let's get back on track here. So the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her for 1,260 days. That's 1,260 days. And in Daniel's, 1,290 days. So there's an extra 30 days, and then 1,305 and 30 days. So there's a lot of different things going on that I believe is is like a separation from the wrath of God. And because God's wrath, I think, is what then lasts many, many, many days. I don't think it's the Great Tribulation. And all of this stuff is very, very, very difficult to try to piece together. I have no problems, thank you, Holy Spirit, of deciphering the truth in his word about election, predestination, no free will, the sovereignty of God, God's plan for his bride, end times prophecy, mark of the beast, all of that. The only thing that I've always found to be very confounding, is that even a word? To be very difficult to understand, to grasp, is all of these different dates and how they fit in and what they all mean when you have to fuse them with Jesus saying, lest I cut those days short. What days? Well, these days given of the Antichrist reign. 42 months, shortened. 3.5 years, shortened. 1,260 days, shortened. Jesus said, lest I cut those days short. Where does he say it? Lest I cut those days short, no flesh would be saved. Matthew 24. It's 24:22. So I just skipped right over it there, didn't I? Yeah, I mean, that's before he even talks about, yeah. So it's the great tribulation. There shall be great tribulation. And then Jesus says, except I cut those days short. So the days of the great tribulation that's mentioned, 42 months, 1,260 days, 3.5 years, are shortened. Shortened to what? Well, the passage about the two witnesses, their bodies are on, which I believe is the church. We now found 4 connections that it's the church. I believe that was yesterday's study. It says 3.5 days. Anyway, let's continue. There was a war in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So we know that Satan is on the earth. He's the prince of the power of the air. He's here. Can he travel back and forth to heaven theoretically and accuse us? Apparently. What was I going to look up? Satan on the earth like a roaring lion, Bible verse. And in the book of Job, he is 1 Peter 5:8. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Well, the sheep are on the earth. Okay. And Satan walking on the earth, book of Job. So Job 1:7. And the Lord said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. So that was all about the very beginning of time when Satan was cast out of his place in heaven. Satan is our accuser. Got Questions, which is a horrible website for truth, but amazing for giving you the Bible verses. Satan is the great enemy. Christians, what does it mean that Satan is the accuser? So hang on a second. So there's 9 Bible verses with the word accuser. Woman, where is your accuser? Commandment to his accusers. And the accusers, commanding his accusers. So it's just really Acts, 2 Timothy, accuser, and then Revelation 12:10. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuse them before God day and night. And we know God is in heaven. So that's where you kind of get the feeling he's able to move about, unless God's here on the earth, which we know God is in heaven, but where that is taking place, because God, of course, can be anywhere. So it's, it's a little tough. I'm just trying to give you all angles, all aspects on how to look at this. The great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, the devil, and he deceived the whole world, and was cast into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now has come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of his brethren, which we just looked up, is cast down, which accused all the sheep before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. Remember, the world hated me before it hated you, but I've chosen you out of the world. So you don't like your life in this world. You don't worry about your life in this world. Friendship with the world is enmity with God. That's why you get called out of celebrating birthdays and Christmas and Easter and all that worldly pagan stuff. Love you very much. Ask a question anytime. That's what I'm here for.